Okay, so we are recording this tonight's meeting, so if anyone doesn't want to be part of that, please don't say anything, or turn your video off, that sort of thing. So this may end up going on YouTube, or we may also use some of the audio for the ISQ podcast, so just be aware of that. So yeah, hope everyone's fitting well, and lockdown is going okay. It sounds like things are starting to ease off, so maybe we'll be able to meet in person soon. Our Monday night nets are still active on GB3XP. I've not been able to join the last couple of ones, but I think that's going pretty well. I think this is our 4th or 5th meeting now by Zoom, and I think so far the technology, touch wood, has been okay, not let us down. We have members of other clubs tonight, so welcome if you're not a member of Sutton and Cheam. We're welcome to the meeting. Hopefully you'll get something else as well. Just a reminder, we've got, I noticed we've got Richard on the call there. We have this weekend, we have the SOTA activity weekend that Richard and Tim have arranged. So please, if you're going to be doing some radio this weekend, listen out for folks that might be on a SOTA summit somewhere, and please work them. And if you are taking part, good luck. Hopefully you'll get some lots of contacts. Unfortunately, Martin, M1MRB, our chairman, can't make it tonight. He's otherwise engaged with a shed he's building and wants to make the best of the good weather. So unfortunately, Martin can't make it, but I'm sure he'll be along next time, apologising for that. Okay, well look, I think that's enough of me. I'm going to pass you over to John, G4IRN, who, I was looking at websites earlier, has done many de-expeditions, and I'm sure this will be a great talk about his latest exploits in Costa Rica, which I think you managed to do, John, didn't you, just before lockdown? So John, I'm going to pass it over to you. If you've got any questions, please just let me know in the chat window, and we'll bring you in at the appropriate time when we have a few gaps in the presentation. So John, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. First of all, can you hear me?
Certainly can, yeah.
Yeah, great, okay. And I'm hoping everyone can see the presentation screen as well.
Yeah, certainly can. I can anyway.
Yes, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Okay, well, yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. There's a few names and call signs there that I recognise. Jeff down the road, nice to see you. And I'm going to be talking this evening via Zoom, which is great. I think it's the 3rd or 4th presentation that I've given on Zoom, probably the 4th or 5th, actually, come to think of it, same presentation that I've given on Zoom, and it's worked really well, actually. I think in many ways it gives a lot more flexibility than actually visiting a clubhouse, and the beer's cheaper as well. So yeah, there are some advantages in doing this. I'm actually giving this talk again next week to the Central Arizona DX Association. So that's going to be a late night, that one, because they're about 7 or 8 hours ahead, I think. So I'm going to be talking about the ARRL DXCW contest, which was last February. There are a couple of weekends for this ARRL contest. Regular contesters. So if you do have any questions, put them in your chat window for Chris, and I'll pause from time to time. Feel free to ask any questions. No questions are silly. I'll do my best to answer them. But I will give some background on the ARRL contest as well. So Viva Bijagua. Bijagua is the name of the village or town where we stayed and operated from. And I'll come on to that in a minute. But basically, the ARRL contest is an annual contest. There's a CW weekend and an SSB weekend. And ARRL is the American Radio Relay League, of course, the American society. And the purpose of the contest really is for everyone to work the North American mainland, and for the North American mainland to work everyone else. So if you're in Europe or South America, as I was, Central America, the idea is to work America. And if you're in America, the idea is to work the world. And when I say the world, the multipliers, so the way the contest scoring works is that you get points per contact, yeah, and there's a multiplier. And that multiplier factor for Americans is the DXCC entity. So the idea is that they want to work as many DXCC entities or countries across the globe as possible on each band. And for non-American stations, North American, so Canadian or US mainland states. So in addition to the number of QSOs, you want as many multipliers as possible on each band. And to do well in any contest of this nature where the DXCC is the multiplier, the country is the multiplier, it helps if you're the only one in that country, because in our case, the whole of America wanted to work us. If you're in England for this contest, there's a lot for them to pick from. There's a lot of G's in the contest, so it's watered down somewhat. But that's the reason we went to Costa Rica, because we knew that we would be the only station in Costa Rica, and all the Americans would want to work us on every band for the multiplier points in the contest. Now, as Chris alluded to, I'm a fairly seasoned de-expeditioner and contester. Going to places like this is, yeah, I've done it fairly regularly, but let's think about where Costa Rica is. First of all, it is in Central America. It's not on the quarantine list yet, I'm noticing, but they have had some COVID outbreaks. The capital is San Jose, and you can see it sits below war-torn Nicaragua, which is what it always used to be called, of course, but these days it's fairly peaceful, I think. And Panama, or tax haven Panama is what it's called, isn't it? But Costa Rica is an interesting place. It's fairly stable, very stable, I think. It has its moments, I'm sure. But it was a very beautiful place, and I'll come on to that in a minute. So, going closer into Costa Rica itself, you can see here we're focused on Costa Rica. San Jose is the area towards the south of the country, which is the administrative capital. Up in the top left, you've got, well, the arrow is pointing to Bijagua, which means two rivers. Agua, water, yeah, by, two. So two rivers, Bijagua. But the nearest big city is Liberia. It's called Liberia rather than Liberia. And actually, there's a big airport there, and airlines like TUI and Thomas Cook do fly there for their package holidays from the UK. So it's a fairly well-frequented airport from the UK. And you can see down the middle of, or rather through Costa Rica, you've got the mountains. It's a very volcanic country, very tropical as well, some beautiful beaches. And if you ever see on TV a travel program about Costa Rica, you'll just come away thinking, what a beautiful country. It's very, very nice. I should have mentioned at the front, by the way, that this presentation was written by my friend Lee, KY7M. And I have cribbed it somewhat. But yeah, should give him a nod. So that's Costa Rica. Some facts about Costa Rica, and obviously you can read it off the screen. Rich coast in English, Nicaragua, war-torn Nicaragua and tax haven Panama to the south. About 5 million, most of them around the capital. A lot of agriculture. We all go to the supermarkets and see bananas from Costa Rica, fairly ubiquitous, but also I think it's a bit of a tax haven itself, and ecotourism is a big thing. And Costa Rican coffee, and the coffee was good there, as was the wine actually. And it's a very eco-friendly country. Yeah, they're aware of their environment, which is nice. And as you can see there, 99.6% of electricity was generated from green sources last year. So, oh, that was the wrong button I've just pressed. Let me just go back here. The CAM connection. So the reason all this came about, this visit to Costa Rica, basically for CQ Worldwide in November for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years, I've been going away with some pals from Arizona as part of a contest group called the Voodoo Contest Group. And we've been all over the world, West Africa, Asia. In fact, we hold Asian multi record in CQ Worldwide CW, and we've won CQ Worldwide from West Africa. And last few years, when Africa got rather unstable, we started looking at South America, and we'd been operating from Suriname, and we were due to go there again this year, actually, for the last few years in CQ Worldwide. But a friend of mine, Mark, M0DXR, had operated from the station belonging to N3KS in Costa Rica. Mark said, oh, drop Cam a line. His name's Cam. Drop Cam a line and see if he will let you operate from there for CQ Worldwide. So I did that, and Cam said, well, actually, the station's not open for CQ Worldwide. There's other guys going to be visiting. He has his regular guys. And but unexpectedly, a little time afterwards, in fact, it was about a year ago, August last year, Cam emailed me and said, look, I've got a vacancy for ARRL CW. Incidentally, it doesn't charge for the station. It's, you know, we absolutely all free. He's doing it for the good of the hobby, and he wants good operators and good teams going there to make use of the facilities, which I'll come on to later, which are top notch. But having been offered that invitation, I pondered on going alone for a while and thought, well, no, this is a 48-hour contest for the ARRL. So I'll reach out to a couple of friends, and both from Phoenix, Arizona, AA7A and KY7M. We've done many trips together to Africa and Cyprus, South America and Asia. And so we thought, yeah, let's do it. So we had the plan set about this time last year, August last year, to go out there in February earlier this year for the contest. And a little picture there of Cam. His father was Egyptian. That's where his name comes from. But he's essentially schooled in America and brought up in North America. So the deal was on, and we started making travel arrangements. So Cam said it would be best to come through Liberia, and I checked. I could have flown TUI or Thomas Cook direct to Liberia and got there that way. But actually, I wanted to meet up with my American pals, AA7A and KY7M, in the States, and then fly in together. I thought, first of all, it'd be good to meet up with them because I don't see them too often for a beer and have a night there and fly down. And secondly, I wanted to reduce the workload on Cam, who would be picking us up at the airport and bringing us into the station. So we agreed to meet in Dallas on the Sunday before the contest to have a Monday morning flight to Costa Rica, with the plan being to have a couple of beers and something to eat, get a good night's sleep, and then fly early on. So Lee, KY7M, found a hotel room in an airport hotel. The flights were booked. We submitted our license applications. So the call sign we used in the contest was TI7W, but prior to the contest, in that week beforehand, we wanted to acclimatize ourselves to the station, gain familiarity, and so on, and run pileups, because, you know, that's why you want to go there, run pileups. So we all applied for our own Costa Rican licenses, the format of which is TI and the area code, so TI7, and in my case, stroke G4IRN. Actually, we had a choice of call signs because the regional numerical number in the prefix, 7, it's actually on the border of 5 and 7. It's a fairly big piece of land that Cam's got there, and he said you can choose 5 or 7, but I think we all chose 7 because the station call sign is TI7W. And it's a turnkey station. So basically, Cam, you know, it's an existing station, everything's there, and we only needed to bring our headphones. Well, that was it really, and some gifts for the hosts. So that was 3 of us going out, myself, AA7A and KY7M. Cam himself wasn't too bothered about operating the contest. The reason we chose 3 people, we decided to enter the multi-1 category of the contest. So this is multi-operator, one transmitter. There are other categories. There's single operator, there's multi-operator, two transmitter, and multi-operator, multi-transmitter even. Multi tends to be the, you know, plenty of team members. You usually need probably at least 7 people. Multi-single, you're only allowed one transmitter at a time, as many team members as you like, but obviously only one transmitter at a time. We felt 3 would be a good number for multi-1, and that would give us all a good period, a good time at operating, and a decent sleep break as well on the contest weekend. Chris, are there any questions coming in so far?
Sorry, John, trying to find the mute button. Nothing as yet, but guys, if you've got any questions, please please jump in the chat window there, and we'll get them to John. But nothing yet, John. Sorry for the delay there.
No worries. Actually, if you just nod or shake your head, then I can see straight away.
I guess so, yeah.
Right, so we had the travel arrangements in plan, certainly by about September last year. And then there had to be a slight change. So in late December, Ned AA7A needed to cancel his participation. Basically, his wife was very ill. And I rang around a few of the sort of contest pals that I've been around the world with, and none were available. They were all going elsewhere because it's certainly American guys, it's a huge contest in their calendar, and yeah, they've made plans by then. But I approached a friend of mine he lives over Reading way, actually, Mike G4IRN. Me and Mike and a couple of others, actually one of them is a member of the Sutton and Cheam club, David, G4IRN, and Stan used to be with us as well. Because there was no NFD this year, the CW RSGB National Field Day, we're still reigning champions from 2019, or at least I'll say we are. But Mike was on the NFD winning team in me in 2019, so I asked Mike to replace Ned AA7A. And yeah, more than happy to come along. He was looking forward to it, and he booked his flight, but he couldn't get on the same flight as me to Dallas. He was on the one after. I think I was on, I forget which way around it was. I was on American Airlines and he was on BA, but they're partner airlines anyway. But he had to take the one after because of the logistics of it, or my flight was booked or something. They're fully booked. But it would still mean that we could all meet in Dallas. So me, Mike, and Lee, KY7M from Phoenix, meet in Dallas on the Sunday night, and still have a beer, still have something to eat, and a few laughs, and get a good night's sleep before going. So this was in February, and we were all set to go the weekend before the contest. And I don't know if you remember, there was something called Storm Kiara. And basically it caused havoc. It really did. And thinking, oh, we're not going to get away here. There's no way we're going to get away. There was some flights coming in and out, long haul. But basically my flight was cancelled, and then a little while after, Mike's flight was cancelled. So we thought, all right, okay. And we were together, so we went to the booking desk, and we were lucky because we were both in the business lounge, having you know, the appropriate cards, silver in my case. So we were, although we weren't traveling business, I hasten to add, but so we could use the rebooking desk in the business lounge, thankfully, because the picture on the right there is the queue in Terminal 5 at the BA desk, and it was just so long. But we jumped up fairly quickly to try and get rebooked, and we were booked onto the same flight, an American Airlines flight to Chicago. We thought, okay, well, if we can get to Chicago, we can get down to Boston later in the night. Sorry, to Lee as planned, maybe miss out on some of the frivolities, but still get there. Anyway, that was cancelled as well because it was very, very windy. It really was. We eventually managed to get rebooked, same flight again, onto a Virgin flight which went out really late, about 1:45, I think. And thankfully, the wind had started to die down a bit by then, but it was going to Boston, and there was no chance of a connecting flight straight away down to Dallas. So we had to wait at Boston Airport. It closes overnight, but we had to wait there. And we got onto a 5:30 in the morning, Monday morning flight, which meant that we could catch up with our plans, meet with KY7M Lee in Dallas, and get down to Liberia and Costa Rica. However, Lee's flight was delayed as well, and he thought he couldn't make it at one point. So, but thankfully he did get there. And Heathrow was just chaos, it really was. There was the line on the left there at Heathrow, and that's my G3WPH. That's once we'd arrived at Boston. And I couldn't sleep, but he managed to look like he was sleeping. I was scared that the bags would be pinched, so I just stayed awake. Although there weren't many people around, to be honest. So Mike and I went from Boston down to Dallas. We got on the phone to Lee, KY7M, when we arrived at Dallas, managed to hook up with him, and we all got on the same flights down to Liberia. So success, we'd managed to catch up with ourselves. And landed in Liberia on the Monday morning. So this is the Monday prior to the contest. So Cam met up with us in his Land Cruiser or similar kind of vehicle. And it was after, speaking to him on Skype and emailing him after so long. It was the first time that I'd met him, in fact, first time that any of us had met him. So it was nice to put a face to the name and the voice. And he suggested, so just to put things into context, Cam was allowing us to stay at a cottage that he has on his land, which he normally rents out as a kind of eco-tourist Airbnb cottage. And we were allowed to stay in a 3-bedroom house on his land, which is self-catering. So basically everything we needed in terms of kitchen and so on. So we'd be self-catering. So the first stop was at the Walmart store in Liberia near the airport. And to be honest, it was just going, you never quite know what to expect when you go to these Central American or South American countries. But it was just like walking into any old supermarket in the world, really. It was well stocked. It was just like going to Walmart or Asda. And we got everything we needed in terms of, well, obviously the important things like beer and wine, and then there's the second priorities like water, and third priorities like food, so and snacks and so on. But seriously, we just stocked up on everything that we thought we would need, at least for the next 3 or 4 days. We knew we'd be cooking for ourselves, so few nice things for dinner and breakfast, and a few snacks, and wine and beer. Yeah, and that did us. And you can see, I think we ended up with 2 trolleys like that in the end, actually. So the Walmart wasn't far from the airport at all. It was only about 20 minutes away. So we then drove on to Cam's house, about an hour's drive from there, and pretty good roads. I've been to Mexico and Guatemala and Honduras and Belize before. I felt this was probably a bit nicer in terms of the state of the roads and general well-being of the place. But part of the journey was on the Pan American Highway, actually, which was quite interesting. Probably one of the better portions. But when we got to the last 5 miles, that was unpaved, and we were in the back country then. And you can see the picture on the right there. That was typical. I mean, the roads were still okay, but they don't get a lot of traffic down them. But they were unpaved. Beautiful scenery, and in fact, there's a semi-active volcano not far from where Cam stayed. So we eventually arrived at Cam's place, and it's just gorgeous. And the guy made a lot of money out of his business in the States, and he sold it to Cobham, Cobham Engineering, the Flight Refueling Amateur Radio Society. Those people who are a big defence company. And in fact, Cam had spent a lot of time in Leicester, of all places, when he sold his company to Cobham, and he made a lot of money out of it, and he's settled into this place in Costa Rica. It's beautiful, it really is. He married a Nicaraguan lady, and they have a couple of kids. They employ so I forget how many acres are in the land, probably about 35, I think he said. But they've got several Airbnb properties, and basically that supports the family in terms of having something to do and having an income coming in. And there's gardeners and so on who he employs from the locality. There was no guest there when we were staying. You can see the properties on Airbnb, by the way. They're freely available. And he's building more Airbnb lodges as well. In fact, he's just bought some more land where he intends to build an eco resort. So he's very much about investing in the local community, about sustainability, and his heart and mind is in the right place. He's a very interesting guy, especially, he's been very, very successful in business, and he's applying the same principles to what he's doing in the business there in terms of keeping it on the straight and narrow and above board and on the moral high road. So that's one view of going into Cam's property. His house is just to the right of centre there, and you may be able to see one of the towers just in the slightly left of centre at the top. I think they're 90 foot. There's two 90-foot towers like that, and we'll come onto the station soon. If you look back from this vantage point where I took the picture, that's looking back down the drive, and then you can't even see the road or the gate. But that's the driveway in. You can just see on the left. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but there is one of two 80-meter phased verticals there. On the lawn, and turning around again as you drive in nearer to the house, you can see one of the two towers here. Now you can see, by the way, it's very tropical, beautiful climate, I'd say about 25, 26 degrees. This was in February. A little bit sticky, but it did rain, and it felt a lot more comfortable after that. It never really felt uncomfortable, to be honest, unless we were walking in the jungle. But on top of this tower, and both towers are identical, is an opti-beam. It's a 4-band opti-beam. I forget how many elements in total, but essentially the big 3 elements are for 40 meters. Then I think, so there's 3 elements on 40. I think there's 4 elements on 20, something like 5 elements on 15, and similar on 10. And there's 2 of these. This station's built for the ARRL contest. So from a DX location, i.e. outside North America, the only contacts you're making in the contest are in North America. He's got 2 of these beams, one on West Coast and one on East Coast, US. So that's all you need in this contest, and both of those can transmit and receive at the same time, or one individually, and so on. I'll come on to the station a little bit later. Basically, this is Cam's house. It's a place to die for, really. It's a beautiful environment, and there's not a lot going on around there, but keeps himself busy, obviously. When you enter the house through the front door, which is in the center of the building, in the picture on the left, it's kind of very open plan. There's the dining room and kitchen and TV area as well in there. Kids running around and so on, and the bedrooms are all off to one side. We were in a separate building, which I'll show you in a second. The rear of this block where Cam lives with his family is here, and he has his gym outside on the balcony here, looking out over the view. And then just across the gardens, is the Airbnb property. So on the left picture is actually 2 apartments. The one on the left is a 1-bedroom apartment, and the one on the right is a 3-bedroom apartment. And that's where we stayed. And there's a nice hammock in between, as you can see. And going into our apartment, I'm having trouble with my mouse for some reason. Going into our apartment, you can see it's nicely fitted out. We've got a little TV area that we never even went in on the left as you go in. And then on the right, you've got a kitchen and dining area. And then there's 3 bedrooms behind that. So we were doing all right, actually. I mean, to get this all for free, basically, out of the goodness of his heart. It was fantastic. I'm just going to switch a light on here, actually.
So, John, just while you're doing that, I've actually got a question. So, how do you find the noise floor different? You know, how is that compared to, say, working over here? If you're out in the middle of what would appear to be a pretty open space.
Yeah. I mean, out there we were spoiled. Funnily enough, it tends to be that people living in the country, and the same applies to the UK to a certain extent, often have problems with power supply lines. So the local power provider, and in Cam's case, that's been no exception. He's had problems with the local power provider. However, it's a bad insulator basically on one of the local power lines. However, he's got to know one of the guys in the power company pretty well, and they've had that fixed. So the main source of noise out there is tropical noise. So tropical storms, just static in the air, and of course, if it rains, there's you get static in that as well. Whereas over here, living where I do, as I'm sure like many people on this call, in southwest London, things like VDSL is huge, and the RSGB set up a sort of communal test recently, didn't they, a few months ago, and I did the test for that and realised that I've got quite a big problem on, especially 30 meters with VDSL, but also just general crap. I mean, if I switch my power off in my home at the main socket, I still get like S7, S8 noise across all the bands, whereas out there on the sort of atmospheric noise aside, the meter doesn't move. It's just dead quiet. Different ball game.
Cool.
Any other questions?
It's very quiet tonight. No, nothing else, I'm afraid, John. But as soon as somebody asks one, I'll be right in there. Don't worry. Yeah.
Okay. So just looking around the state before we go into the dive into the radio aspects. This is a rainbow eucalyptus tree, and I think it fascinated Lee, my friend who did the presentation, put the presentation together, because he has eucalyptus trees in his vicinity at home in Arizona, I think. But this was a rainbow eucalyptus tree. And of course, there's lots of beautiful flora and fauna and fruit like plantain, for instance, on the left. Look very much like bananas, same family. I don't know what the picture on the right is showing, but there's obviously something in there. Tell you what, there was loads of hummingbirds and lots. We saw some toucans, which I'll come on to. Lots of small little colourful things. But I mean, these just are some of the things why the tourists go to Costa Rica. Things like the rainforest, the waterfalls, the scenery. If you see the pictures of the beaches on travel programs, they're just incredible, really, really incredible. And I know surfing is a big thing over there. And it's a pity, really. We were up in the hills and really concentrating on doing the contest, only there for a week, and we didn't really have much time to see the country, which is a pity, really. We didn't do it justice, but it would be a nice place to go back to. Perhaps with my wife even, to do a proper holiday. Wildlife-wise, this was, if you might not quite make this out immediately, but this is a sloth. And this was, you see, it's a 3-toed sloth. It's quite a mature one, I think. His back's a bit sore by the looks of it. There's his arm and head. It was very difficult to get a good shot of this sloth. But I would guess he was about, I don't know, 4 to 5 feet, probably nearer 5 feet high, 4.5 feet high. sitting in the tree, didn't do much, which I suppose you'd expect for a sloth. They eat the leaves off the eucalyptus trees. And he just appeared one morning, and he was there for about 3 or 4 days, and then just disappeared and went somewhere else. I think found another eucalyptus tree. I didn't know until, I mean, I know a few sloths, of course, we all do at work, but this one is the 3-toed. There are also two-toed sloths, and even the 3-toed ones has 3 or 4 different species, but often the one of the 3-toed and one of the 2-toed will live together in the same forest or area. So I read. I don't know, but this was a 3-toed, which was quite fascinating. First time I've seen one out of captivity. Certainly, I don't know if I've even seen one in a zoo. But the stars of the show were the monkeys, the howler monkeys, and they didn't appear for the first few days. But one morning we heard, well, I thought it was kind of howling dogs, or dogs or foxes or something. I thought it was, and it wasn't until Cam's wife pointed out in the trees that there was all these howler monkeys around. And in fact, yeah, there was a few families as well. The one on the right was a little cute baby, and you might be able to make out the picture on the left there is the mother. They were actually, once we'd seen them, they were all over the place, and we were hearing them all the time. So whether they'd kind of moved in to feed in our particular area for a few days, I don't know. But that was fun, and they would just sit there and look back at you as you spoke to them and took pictures of them. And I just took these with my camera on a bit of a telescopic zoom. It's just a compact travel camera with a small telescopic zoom, but they were really close. They quite fascinating. Similarly, in terms of wildlife, the toucans, there was a lot of them. Just had to catch them. This one again on my same camera, a little bit pixelated. It was a bit further, a bit of digital zoom on this one. I think it's a bit further away, but beautiful birds. Anyway, right, that's enough about the tourism stuff. On to radio. So on the first morning, so. First morning there. So this would be Tuesday. It was time for orientation, basically. So you've got Mike, G4IRN on the left, me on the right, and Cam, our host, in the middle there. He must have taken the photograph. So what we wanted to do, and in the sort of few days before the contest on the Saturday, was to, well, in fact, it started Friday night. 48-hour contest. What we wanted to do in the few days before the contest is just gain complete familiarity with the antennas, with the station, with propagation, what happens if anything goes wrong. Cam wouldn't be operating with us, so he wouldn't be there 24 hours a day. He'd be doing what people do when they're at home, like eating and spending time with his family and sleeping and so on. So a big part of this is what happens if it goes wrong, the power goes off in the middle of the night. So full shot view. You see here, I mentioned earlier that you see the big TI7W call sign plaque. As I mentioned earlier, Cam's on the border of the 5 and 7 areas in TI. And what he found was that TI5 produced too many busted calls on CW. So he switched it to TI7. More people get that. So we operated TI7W, which is now his regular station call. And basically quite compact. So it's built for single operator 2 radio or multi-operator 1 transmitter. These are Flex 6600Ms. So basically they're SDR radios with inbuilt Windows 10 PCs. So they're PCs with SDR radios built in. He had 3 of those. There's only 2 in the picture. Actually, the third one had been in the States for repair, and Lee brought it in with him. KY7M, Lee brought it in with him from Phoenix, and there was no customs issues at all, just brought it straight in. If we take a closer look, you see the big monitor here, which is kind of a centerpiece on the station. 40-inch monitor. It's a single monitor with 4 inputs. So in the config for the screen, you can set it to have 1, 2, 3, or 4. Well, I don't know about 3, but certainly 1, 2, and 4 in inputs. So you can see here we've got 2 separate PCs feeding into the same screen. And there's a piece of software also that allows you from the right PC to control the screen on the left, which is quite handy. Now, what we've got here is the contest logging software. So the right station can see is obviously the one on the right, and the left station logging software on the left. We've also got the amplifier control panels. So these are OM power amplifiers, which I'll come on to in a minute. These are the remote user interface for them. So what we can see at any one time is not only our own amplifier that we're working with, but what the other guy's amplifier is doing as well. So if there is an issue, for instance, high SWR or high grid current, something like that, you can alert each other. Because it's only a one transmitter category entry, in our case, there is a lockout between the 2 stations. So there's no way that both stations can transmit at the same time. So yeah, the station software and the hardware just doesn't allow it. So that keeps you within the rules of the contest, only allowing 1 transmitter at a time. You can, in the contest, go from one band to another, but you're only allowed 6 band changes within an hour. So you have to think about how you're going to move around. Anyway, come on to that later. So basically, we've got networked logging software. We're using a piece of software called DXlog, which some of you may have heard of. I mean, it does a similar thing to N1MM, which many of you may be familiar with. We personally prefer it, prefer the user interface and the way it works. And there's various other bits on here for switching, and so that's a DX cluster, I think, V7CC software on the left. And there's various other pieces of software that you need here to integrate the flex radio. So there's, I mean, things like Jeff G4IRN would know more about this. He's on the call, but things like the virtual serial ports, the virtual audio cables, all those kind of things are in software, and these are the bits of software that do that. So it's all quite complex, actually. And in fact, if I go to a station diagram. And I don't even get this, so I don't know how I'm going to describe it to you. But basically, I think start with the antennas. There are right. These are the so the antennas up there weren't used. These are the northeast and northwest beams that we used, and they've got switches that basically they've got quadplexers on them. So they're 4-band, 40, 20, 15, and 10. They've got quadplexers on them each, which allow any 2 bands to be used at the same time on the same antenna through bandpass filters. So any one of those beams can be used by both stations at the same time on different bands. There's also, so that covers 40 through to 10. There's on 80 meters, two 3-element Yagis. And I'm looking at this diagram thinking it's not right actually, but it looks good, doesn't it? But there are 2 3-element Yagis on 80 meters, and they're wire antennas, one northeast, one northwest, and they're basically hung in trees in the forest. I've got a photo of that later. And then on 160, there's a big loop antenna, which is probably about 100 feet high, plus a vertical, I think. And on receive on all the LF bands, we've got beverages pointing northeast and northwest for East Coast and West Coast respectively. I think I'll take that slide out. I'm not sure it's right. There's one of the there they are. There's the OB174. So that's the opti beam, comes into a quadplexer, and there's the other one, comes into a quadplexer through bandpass filters and switches. Okay, yeah, parts of it are right. So basically, there's lots of versatility, lots of flexibility. You can switch northeast, northwest, both at the same time. You can go on LF, vertical, or Yagis. You know, it's one of the best stations I've ever operated, to be honest. It is a very, very well thought out station and basically built around the ARRL contest. So it was obviously quite a pleasure to operate it. The amplifiers, there's two OM 3.5s. So these things are capable of 3.5 kilowatts output, but actually, I mean, the license restriction and indeed the contest restriction is 1.5 kilowatts. And we did stick to that all week, in fact. The reason CAN has these amplifiers is basically because of the humidity and the heat that is generated in the shack. These are the only amplifiers he's found that are up to the job, that can run 1.5K all weekend, non-stop, and not complain about it. He's tried the expert solid state amplifiers, he's tried the ACOM 2000s, and they all fail. But he's having a lot of luck with these OM amplifiers, particularly the 3.5K, and yeah, they just loaf along at 1.5K. And of course, everything in the station is IP connected. So as are the radios, the Flex radios, of course. So in terms of setting stuff up, it really makes it very straightforward and very configurable as well, and probably remote if you wanted to as well. So station 1, so this is the left-hand station, which was mainly used by the second operator. So we'd have the primary operator would be running, calling CQ most of the time, and getting responses. And it was busy. It was very, very busy because all those Americans and Canadians on mainland North America wanted to work at us. We were the only TI station around, so they needed us as a multiplier. Both sides of the station are pretty similar, to be honest. On station 1 here, there is the Flex radio at the bottom right is the one that was in use. And then to the left of that, the lit switches are the antenna switches. So you could select North Coast, West Coast, Northwest, Northeast, I should say, either both together or one at a time. And yeah, all the switches are there. And then basically go on to the bandpass filtering. The stuff on the left, we didn't touch at all, really. It was just there. Paddle, of course, most of the CW in the contest particularly is generated by the computer for accuracy and speed, but there's always times when you need to interject with a hand key. The Flex radio up here, that was the third one, which was just monitoring 10 meters all weekend. So that was on a dedicated 10-meter Yagi. Now, in terms of the contest tactics, we knew that our biggest competition, we were in this to win it, incidentally. We knew our biggest competition outside North America amongst the DX stations would come from the Caribbean. And one of the determining factors in how well we would do was whether 10 meters would be open or not, and how much better the 10-meter openings to us would be over the Caribbean openings. So it was absolutely critical that we were successful on 10 meters over the weekend, and indeed 15 as well, to get those extra contacts and work the extra states and Canadian provinces for the multipliers. So this Flex radio up here was just dedicated to monitoring 10 meters. And anytime we saw a blip on that or anything of interest showing on there, the guy in the left seat would go and listen and see what's going on, with a view to immediately QSY into 10 meters if it was open. Because tactically, strategically, we were banking on that. And then the right-hand station, which is where the main operator would sit, is kind of a mirror image, really. Another Flex radio, obviously keyboard key, bandpass filter. It's all automated. You change the band on the radio, and all these bandpass filters and switches and antenna switches and stuff, they just all follow. but you know, the price of automation is complexity, and that's why we needed to be familiar with the station, know what to do to set it up if we needed to reset it, and so on. So I'll just take a little break there, Chris. I just wondered if there's any questions coming in.
Amazingly, no, but I've got another couple of questions actually. So you say the rules were one transmitter at a time. How did you coordinate between the operators to make? It sounds like quite a couple of things. It was obviously quite complicated in terms of making sure you didn't break the rules, making sure you got this lockout so you weren't able to transmit at the same time. But how did you kind of coordinate between the operators? And also, given this is a turnkey station which is already in place, I'm guessing there was an awful lot of technology that perhaps you hadn't seen before, the flex radios, the antenna setup, all that sort of thing. How did you get used to it in such a short amount of time?
Okay, so the flex radios were new to us all. I'll come on to the logistics of operating in a second. So the technology was new to us all. It tends to be on any radio, even in a contest, there's only probably half a dozen knobs that you use. You know, the VFO, the band change, the volume, the RF gain, and the filter. Maybe maybe the noise blanker, but it tends to be those knobs. But to be honest, the whole reason for us sitting down at the radios on the Tuesday ahead of the contest on Friday evening was to gain familiarity. That was the whole purpose of us going a week beforehand to sit down at those radios, understand the station, run pile-ups, work out in practice how the radios will work, how they perform. And you know, every radio is different in terms of when you're running huge pile-ups, and I do mean big pile-ups, some radios can handle it and some can't. And those that can handle it, and even those that can't, you drive them differently, whether it be using the RF gain or filter width or attenuation. And you have to learn how to get the best out of the radio in particular situations, or dealing with adjacent interference, so maybe using IF shift, that kind of thing. So the whole purpose of, as I say, going there a few days before was to learn how to drive the radios. And you do drive them. You do learn how to work them in certain extreme scenarios. And you know, this is an extreme scenario when you get in huge pileups. So that was that. Right, cooperation. So you can, I mean, the subject of contest operating is probably a complete separate presentation as well. But where you've got multi-operator, I mean, Lee and I and Mike will, certainly I know them both. They didn't know each other, but the principles are the same in that generally in this type of contest where you are a unique multiplier, you focus on running. So you run, call CQ, 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 and people will call you. However, it's important that you work as many multipliers as possible to get the, you know, it multiplies the points, to work as many points as possible. So basically the second operator, his job is to keep an eye, well, to do two things: tune around the other bands, and tune around all the bands, and also to keep an eye on the DX cluster, because the DX cluster is allowed in the multi-operator category, but to look out for states and provinces or multipliers that we haven't worked, and that's his job. And and it's in the first sort of 12-24 hours of the contest, you're not too bothered about multipliers that you haven't already worked, because you know that generally they will come up in the second half of the contest, unless it's a super rare one, like in the northern areas, provinces of Canada. But generally, if the second operator has built a band map, I mean, you know, you build a band map of stuff that's on there, stuff that you need, so you've got an idea of where everything is, and when he's got enough to warrant him working to QSY and working through the band map, then operator A will hand over to operator B. Operator B will work as many multipliers as he can on another band as quickly as possible, and then hand back to the run operator. And the run operator will often go back, we'll say just QRX, and the pilot will hold. The other guy goes back and works 3 or 4 multipliers, which are all worth their weight in gold, then hand back, and the run operator will go back and the pilot will still be there in you know, the ideal situation. But those multipliers, as I say, they're very, very valuable. There's a physical lockout on the station, so on the two stations, so you can't transmit at the same time and breach the rules. Yeah, it just can't happen. There is a limit on the number of QSYs per hour. I think it's 6. So if I was running on 20 meters and my partner says, right, I've got some mults on 15 meters, I want to work them. So I say, okay, you take it, Lee. He works through half a dozen multipliers and then hands it back to 20 meters. That's 2 QSYs. Yeah. So you need to be careful about how many QSYs that you're doing in an hour, and you know, make sure it's worthwhile. You don't want to waste 1 or even 2 QSYs for the sake of 1 multiplier when it really isn't needed. Does that answer your question, Chris?
It does, John. Thank you. It sounds like a very complicated juggling act, but it sounds like one that you kind of got your head around. And I guess it's something you get, I guess with experience. It's something that you learn, isn't it, over time? And
yeah, and it gets trickier in multi operators where you might have a big room full of basically 7 transmitters, 1 on each band plus a multiplier. And when you start passing stuff, where you've got multi operators on multi-transmitter, multi, then you try and pass multipliers from band to band. And the software supports that, but generally, you know, using post-it notes and stuff works as well. But the software does support it, and it's probably a better way to do it. But yeah, it's all about the intricacies of team working and making sure that you're maximizing the points. Sure. Especially, you know, trying to get rare stations to QSY from band to band so you get those points is essential.
Cool. Guys, just so you know, I've actually now said it, so if you want to, you can unmute yourself. So if you've got any other questions, when John says, just jump in and ask away. John, back to you. Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, the learning about the station is what I've been alluding to. Yeah, where is everything? How do we control it? Yeah, the radios, they're Windows 7 radios, and actually, like Windows does, it failed a couple of times. There were software errors. CAN actually ended up loading a previous version of the SDR software, the Flex software, so that we run a more stable version ahead of the contest. But things like the UPS, we needed to know how to drive that and switch it on in the middle of the night should anything go wrong. And we did need to learn it because it did fail in the middle of the night. We had a power cut and we had to restart it. So, and I think we had to reboot one of the radios at least once. Fortunately, because there was 2 main radios, when one failed, we could just sort of go onto the other while the other one rebooted. But they, yeah, to be honest, I ought to say here, the radios were excellent performers and amongst the best contest radios I've ever used. Definitely very, very good performers. But of course, they do rely on software and interfacing and integration, and there's plenty of complexity that can go wrong, and that's the Achilles heel. But it wasn't that big a problem. So yeah, that was Cam patiently explaining his station. I think we videoed it actually, but I won't play the video now. So for the contest, so the contest started at midnight on the Friday evening GMT. Yeah, so midnight Friday evening to Sunday midnight. So that's 48 hours in total GMT. We were 6 hours behind, so it'd be starting at 6 p.m. What we decided to do was run 3-hour shifts. So there'd always be two of us at the radio if possible. Probably not in the middle of the night, but that was the idea, that we'd do 3-hour shifts, and that would give us an opportunity to sleep. So there's 3 operators. Second station manned for the multipliers as needed. I mentioned the 10-meter monitor, 6 band changes per hour. Yeah, this was one of Lee's comments when he put the presentation together. He, of course, Lee's operated KY7M, operated this contest many times from home. So for him, it was quite a novelty operating it as DX and working all the mainland provinces. And actually Washington, DC is an extra multiplier on this, but not the offshore provinces or non-mainland, not the non-contiguous states. KL7 and KH6 are not multipliers. Okay, and DXlog as well. We needed to configure that for the network ahead of the contest. That took a little time. So next one is a picture of me and Mike configuring the software, I think. It got to the stage on, I think, Thursday, the day before the contest. We were fully aware that we were in this beautiful countryside and we hadn't been out yet. So actually, Lee and I went for a bit of a walk, just to have a look at the local scenery. We probably walked 3 or 4 miles. There's quite a few of these B&B type places, lots of farming, cattle, spectacular views, very tropical. Skywalk was a load of like rope ladders and rope bridges through trees. We didn't try that. It's a big dairy area, and I think this was a cheese factory. Yeah. Ken actually gave us his truck for use. Lee and I nipped into town as well. Of course, Lee, who put the presentation together, found this the fact that it had a stick shift, a bit of novelty, fairly normal for us really. But the fact that he just trusted us with his truck was quite nice. And we all went down and did a bit more shopping. This was ahead of the contest still. This was just in the local town. And as you can imagine, everything was fresh and very good quality. And I think not the night of the contest, but the night before, we actually did a steak. It was lovely, actually. Just in our own little house. On one of the other nights, we did a restaurant in town. It was a nice pizza place, and fairly well frequented. There was a few other tourists around. It wasn't really sort of tourist time of year. They were mainly groups of tourists on bus tours and that kind of thing. Not all large buses, mini bus tours with guides. And a few of them stopped off here and at the other restaurants that we visited and the bars. This was our way to Mackenzie. And the food, you can see on the right here, it was very large portions. So I guess they cater for a lot of Americans. And the beer was nice, went down very well. Coles, which I mentioned earlier, of course, they switched to put a lobe on the American continent, and the OptiBeam. Oh, they're OptiBeam clones, actually. I thought they were OptiBeams, but they're cloned. One northwest, one northeast. Fine antennas. Around the woods and the forest area, Cam's got a load of other antennas as well, actually. This is a hex beam that he's got there. I think the largest element on that was for 30 meters, actually. I think that went up to 30. And this, I think, was one of the elements on the 80-meter Yagi. Oh, there's 3 element 80-meter Yagis, actually. And they're supported using these 85-foot spider beam poles. So the tall ones. Got an antenna layout here. So the shack was this building here, to the left of the 80-meter northwest Yagi. So there's the 80-meter Yagis. It's quite an experience. There's a 160-meter loop, and actually there was a 160 vertical as well, I think. There are beverages hidden away for low noise receive. A couple of towers, Tower 1, Tower 2 with the OptiBeam, 40 through 10 beams. The 80-meter phased verticals over here. So north, so the bottom left is the area, of course, where we were kind of firing most of the time, northeast and northwest. That 8 circle isn't there anymore. Don't know if you can see my mouse, but the building here towards the top left with the grey roof and the white arrow on the roof is the building where we were in, the Airbnb, and the other one between the 2 houses is where Cam lives. And I think all the land that you can see there is Cam's land, and it stretches beyond that as well. So walking around the forest, I was hoping to see snakes and spiders. We saw a few spiders, but follow, and there's a 500-year-old tree here. I stood Mike next to it as a comparison, but Mike's not 500 years old yet. But yeah, it looks a pretty old tree. And there's a nice lookout post here where you can look out over the fields, and we didn't see much, to be honest. You probably see much more at dusk and dawn when all the dawn chorus happens. So this was still prior to the contest, and during the week. We'd been running pileups, by the way, in between on the radios. I was up most mornings for UK sunrise. So I think 2 o'clock local, I was getting up. So I was going to bed about 9 o'clock local and getting up at 2 o'clock local and running pileups on 30 and 40 meters. And I worked about 1800, I think, prior to the contest, just to warm up and get used to the radios and the antennas and so on. We had dinner before the contest. It's quite civilized because although the contest starts at midnight in Europe or in GMT UK, it was 6 p.m. over there, so it gave us a chance for a late afternoon dinner, and then we were straight into it. So this was obviously a picture taken during the contest. So you can see here, Lee on the right is the run operator, and Mike on the left is the partner or the second operator. Mike will be looking for mults. He'll be looking for multipliers. And he's got his band map here on the software, and he'll be identifying states and provinces that we need to work to gain extra points. And Lee will just be calling CQ and working as many as he can, hoping that multiple call us as well, of course. And if they do, and we need them on another band, and we have a feeling that band will be open, and it's a rare mult, we'll ask them to QSY and work them on another band so that we get the extra multipliers. The idea is to try and work every multiplier on every band, ask them to move if need be. So you can see here the 2 flex radios, and I think the 10-meter one must have appeared later. Again, that was me in the hot seat, and another one of me and Mike. Pan adapters are great because they gives you an opportunity to see what's going on the bands, and it's a great way of finding somewhere on the band. And just in terms of the 10-meter one that we had up here, it just gives you an opportunity to understand if anything's there. So I think it's an essential part of contesting kit these days, or even DXing kit. So in terms of sort of the play-by-play of the contest, it started at 1800 local time. So it was still daylight at that time, so we figured that the HF bands, probably 20 meters, would be open. So we decided to start on 20, and Cam advised that anyway, and just milk it for as long as we could, many points as possible, and then move to 40 as it got dark. We tried what we call partner mode. It's something that I've used before with the RSGB and the IARU contest, which actually was a few weekends ago, where you've got, it particularly works well where you've got multiple stations listening in on the same frequency to the same pilot, and one guy operating. The so-called partners listening at different locations can enter into the logging software in a special partner window, call signs that they're calling. So in the pilot, because of course you may hear different or have a different perspective on the pilot from different locations within the UK. And it is good on the RSGB contests where we're listening all over the country, and if a multiplier calls you and maybe it's weak with the operator but loud with a partner, then the partner puts it on the list, and the main operator can see that the multiplier is calling and go to that guy next. We tried that with Lee sitting next to me as we kicked off on 40 meters, but it wasn't worth the effort. He was hearing exactly the same calling as I was. So he went to bed and I carried on my own. But the first 40 minutes on 20 meters was quite productive, 177 QSOs, and then moved to 40 meters. So the first hour, 199, and that actually is a pretty good hour. I normally think 180 is a good hour, 180 QSOs. So we were pleased about that, and particularly with the size of the pileups at the start of the contest. It can be very, very difficult to pick out call signs, especially if they're all calling on the same frequency. So, a tip would be, if you're a CW operator, always call slightly off frequency, and you'll get picked out much easier. But also, I think, the high QSO rate is a testament to the radio. It was a well-performing radio. So 40 meter died down after a while, and QSY to 80, and then 160 in the third hour. So that would have been my last hour. And I handed off to Lee after 542 QSOs in the first 3 hours. Cameron had advised us to concentrate on 160 because, the mults are harder to work there, particularly the far off ones in the North Provinces. So Lee did spend some time on there when he came on, and Lee made a further 500 contacts in the next 3 hours. So we thought we'd done pretty well, actually, on the first night before sunrise on Saturday. So moving on to the next slide. Oh, it jumps again. So after sunrise, so this is Saturday morning, we moved up the band meters and started getting some, hoped for some decent rates. Now, of course, the problem is overnight, all the Europeans turn their beams to the US, or rather the other way around. All the North Americans turn all their beams to Europe. Yeah, and so us being south of the Americans, they don't hear us so well. So yeah, the mornings are notoriously difficult when you're in South America, trying to grab the attention of the Americans. So, but things did pick up, and we were very concerned about HF 15 and 10, but 15 did come alive. And in fact, I had one of my personal best operating hours ever. Well, my personal best operating hour of 244 QSOs in an hour on 15 meters, and that actually included a band change to probably 20 meters to work a couple of multipliers, and then came back. So I was kind of hoping I'd get 250, but didn't quite make it, probably because of that QSY. But going back to your earlier question, Chris, about the sort of dynamics between the two operators, it has to be very, very slick. If you're operating at 244 Qs an hour, which, believe me, is bloody fast, and you need to QSY to another band to work a couple of multipliers, it has to be like a Grand Prix tire change. Yeah, it is really like that. Incidentally, when this might be a subject of contention, I don't know, but when you're running a pileup and you've got a lot of stations calling, that tends to slow things down. The ideal pileup is just one caller after another, with not too many calling, and that enables you to keep the speed up. If the pileup gets really, really thick, it gets harder, it slows you down. But there is, I mean, the North Americans are particularly slick, and when you've got that utopian kind of situation of a trickle, one after the other, these kind of rates are very possible, and that's when you start turning up the speed. So for that hour of 244, I was operating at 44 words a minute. At the end of the hour, when it started slowing down, I was straight back to 28 words a minute. But while people are calling, you keep the speed up, keep the rate up. That's the most important thing. Keep the QSOs up. They know who you are because they know your call sign off the DX cluster, and I can read call signs sent to me at 44 words a minute, but generally most callers will do it a bit, when they call, will do it a bit slower. 10 meters never opened on day one, and for us that was going to be one of the deciding factors. But at the end of day one, we had almost 3,500 queues, 284 multipliers. So we thought we were doing all right. And we did wonder, of course, how our Caribbean competition were doing, hoping they weren't doing as well and hoping they didn't have 10 meters either. But so we were praying for things to open up on day 2. But over the second night, things did slow down and down and down. And we had some very slow hours overnight, as usually happens on the second night. I'll pause for any questions.
Guys, if you've got any questions, you can unmute yourselves and ask away, or if not, we'll let John carry on. Not very quiet tonight, John, sorry.
Well, I'm just, I guess I'm startling them with,
absolutely.
with facts. You know, we continue to pay close attention to the 80 and 160 for those multipliers. But thankfully, to our surprise, on day 2, 10 meters did come alive. You know, typical 10 meter sporadic key, very kind of spotlight propagation. It would come in phases. It would be a couple of particular states, and then they'd disappear, and then another couple would come up and pop out of the noise. But yeah, our big concern all through this was how the Caribbeans would get it. We did find out later that they had it better than us, and you know, coupled to their proximity to North America for LF, particularly 160 and 80, we figured that they would probably have done better than us. But at the end of the contest, we had 5,365 QSOs, 329 mults, for a raw score of nearly 5.3 mil. So all in all, we were impressed by the way the station worked. Not too many emergencies. Yeah, we had a great time, which is the number one thing. Were we going to win? Well, that was a $64 million question. This was our score, a raw score at the end of the contest off the logging screen. So you can see that 20 meters was the money band, but certainly 15 and 10, 40 and 15, very, very close in terms of number of QSOs. So those 3 bands, 40, 20, 15, were where most of the contacts came from. States and provinces, so these are the multipliers. You can see we did pretty well on all bands, actually. I forget how many there are in total to actually work of states and provinces, probably around 65. But we were pleased with the number of multipliers we got. Did pretty well on 160 as well, considering our proximity from North America. So all in all, we were pretty pleased. In terms of rates, you can see daytime, start the contest, getting up to 200. These are clock hours. Saturday afternoon, it's often the sort of early evening, often the case, is the busiest period when propagation is open to North America. Big dip on the second night, and then things picked up on the second day, but nowhere near as good as the first day. So comparing to our competition, and you know, we were wanting to beat those Caribbean stations, but actually the scores they posted, 2 of them in Cayman and Aruba, were slightly better than us, which was slightly annoying. But you know, it's all the rub of the green in terms of propagation and openings and so on. But we were pleased. These are the other multi-single claimed scores. I ought to check actually if the results are out. They may be finalised now, but I'm sure the positions haven't changed. So ZF1A, some guys that we know, actually, some American guys that we know in the Cayman, they won this category. And we came a very credible 3rd. So on reflection, as I start to wrap up, you know, there's a few nightmares getting there in terms of the travel, but they were Cam and his wife Bertha, who's Nicaraguan incidentally, and really, really nice. They all speak excellent English, amazing hosts. We were well looked after. It's very comfortable. We felt we did pretty well considering no sunspots and you know, being dropped in the deep end in terms of unfamiliar station antennas. On the Sunday evening after the contest, because it finished at 6 p.m, so there was a Sunday evening, 6 p.m. local, 12 o'clock GMT, we had an opportunity for dinner after the contest, and the guy that Cam, our host, had befriended in the power company, joined us for dinner on the Sunday evening. And in fact, he joined us on the Sunday afternoon, and listened into the stations to the pilots for a long, long time. He doesn't know any CW, but he was sat there fascinated by listening to these calls coming in and watching them being logged and so on. So he joined us, and we had a bottle of scotch after the contest. I think after dinner, actually, so we normally do. But we went back to the pizza place and had a few beers, and this was the guy from the power company who Cam knows, and just reflected and wound down and chilled out, and had a happy time. And as in all these sort of contesty expeditions and so on, we did the team photo with our beer guts, and there we are. So me, G4IRN, Mike, G3WPH, Lee, KY7M, and it's because of Lee I'm giving this presentation to the Central Arizona DX Club, DX Association next weekend, actually. He preferred me to give it. And Cam, our station host, MK3S, in the station picture. It was a wonderful experience, and that must say bye-bye, and next time. See you next time. So that's it. I hope I managed to get over mine, and the honor that it was to operate such a fantastic station in a DX location that is so geared for doing well in this kind of contest, with a very kind and generous host and his family. It was a marvelous experience. So those are the main things I hope I got across from this presentation. But again, happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
John, thank you very, very much. It was a fascinating talk. It looks like you had a great time. Just looking at your website, you've been to many places around the world doing these expeditions. It looks like at least 1 or 2 a year. I mean, it may be a secret, but what are you planning next?
Well, generally I try and go away for the CQ Worldwide CW contest, and so that's in November. Last year I did that from Madeira, which in CQ Worldwide terms acts as or counts as Africa, and I did a single band entry 15 meters in that. I forget what position I came. I think I came second or third in the world in that, just with a vertical antenna on the side of a hill in Madeira. But previous to that, I've been to West Africa and South America. It was our plan, as the Voodoo Contest group was known, it was our plan for CQ Worldwide this year to go to Suriname now in November. However, the station a few weeks ago took a lightning hit, and it's currently unavailable. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing in November, and because of the COVID situation, I don't know what the travel situation will be, to be honest. The last sort of non-contest expedition I did was to the Andaman Islands, which is VU4. I did that on my own. I was supposed to be in a team of 4, but 3 people dropped out. I can't remember. I may have given a talk to the Sutton about that, to the Sutton Club. I can't remember, but or did I? No, I didn't. So that was the Andaman Islands in 3 years ago, probably. Where next? Nothing planned at the moment. It's all in the air. To be honest, we're just putting our house up for sale, and we're going to be moving soon. So I think it's going to be a fairly unstable period, if you like, in my life. And I've just got a new work contract as well. So nothing planned, but I suspect next year, when lockdown starts to be lifted, that I'll get itchy feet and want to go somewhere, but nothing definite yet.
Excellent. Guys, any last questions, or anybody got any questions for John before we close things up?
No, so just what you were saying there, John. How did the Vex radio, the 6600M, cope under pretty difficult conditions with very strong signals? Guys next to you putting out 1.5 kilowatts. They're supposed to be very good in terms of their filtering and so forth, but did you actually find that in practice?
Yeah, I mean, in stations like this, actually, and a question I've got for you, Jeff, someone was asking how much the station cost. How much do the 6600Ms cost? Any idea?
Yeah, I think if you buy it at full list price, it is about 5K.
Okay, so yeah, I guessed about right. So, you know, no radio is going to perform well when it's sitting next to another one on another band and the antennas are in such close proximity. Really the secret is very good engineering, station engineering, in terms of bandpass filtering and making sure that you know, coax lengths aren't resonant and all that kind of thing. So you know, there's a lot of engineering and quadplexes and stuff like that that goes on, bandpass filters, multiple bandpass filters. You can't get away from harmonics. And of course, if you're on 20 meters and a guy is on 40 meters, you will always see his 50/9 harmonic. There's not, you know, it's not very easy to suppress those kind of things, but really it's the intermodulation and all the crap that radios produce that you need to reduce. The Flex radios were very clean on transmit, we found, and once we learned how to drive them, the receivers were excellent, amongst the best, if not the best I've ever used. And I'm used to, you know, I've operated the K3s, the K3Ss, the 7610s, the 7800s, and these I thought the Flex were very, very good. The only sort of Achilles heel, as I alluded to earlier, is the fact that they are software driven, so you are at risk of, you know, when the power fails, for instance, and you want to switch it all back on again, it's not just a matter of switching the radio on, it's a matter of bringing up all the software and integrations again. So it does take, it's like bringing a data center back up. You know, it's not, yeah. Or a server room. It's not just a matter of switching the radio on. But they performed very well. I was impressed.
Yeah, that's great. Good, thanks. I wondered because I knew you'd used Aircraft extensively, so you do a comparison there.
Yeah, and they're very good radios as well, of course. So
yeah, excellent, John. Thank you very much, and thank you for your talk.
Oh, no worries. Nice to hear you, Jeff. Any other questions?
Everyone seems to be on mute, so I'm guessing not.
No. Okay, well, if there are any follow-up questions, if they want to email them to you, Chris, or direct to
I'm happy to pass
you know,
it on,
my
John,
email address through my website is perfectly fine.
Excellent. Well, look, John, I think that's, unless anyone's got any final questions, then I don't think they are. So, okay, John, look, thank you very, very much. That was a really excellent talk, and I think we've all enjoyed and quite jealous, actually, of what you've done there, and we wish you all the best for the future. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you too. And yeah, keep in touch, Chris, because obviously as I do trips, I always enjoy giving these presentations. And, you know, once I've written, or rather once the presentation has been put together, it's a shame not to share these experiences through presentations to clubs and so on. And I enjoy giving them, and also, you know, just talking about contesting, because it's a part of amateur radio that I thoroughly enjoy, and you know, it drives. You learn a lot from it. It improves your operating and so on. And you know, in my case, has given a lot of other opportunities as well. So yeah, I'm always happy to give talks to the club, and yeah, let's keep in contact anyway.
Correct. Thank you, John. We'll give you a virtual clap from the guys on the call. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, John.
Appreciate that. Thanks for being such a good audience. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, John.
Cheers, John.
And we'll close the call there. Thank you all very much for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, John.